Kip, what's up, brother? So great to see you. As always, love our Monday conversations. The guys don't get the benefit of our conversations till Wednesday, but so be it. Here we are. Actually,
This is, yeah.
that's not entirely true because we're starting to make all of our podcasts available early in the Iron Council. So if you're a member of the Iron Council, you're going to get it early.
Then you
Just
get early.
throw that
There you
little
go.
carrot out there for
Yeah.
the guys.
It's a perfect way to start off the week. IC would probably be what, Tuesday though, right? One day
That they would
earlier.
receive it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Tuesday. I mean, it's done. And, as soon as we're done, I can just post a link. So
Yeah.
the hard part
Yeah, we
is,
were joking.
and the guys that are business owners know this, but the hard part is delegating all of that stuff. I hear from so many men who, it's funny, they think I just mess around on social media, or I don't know, like dink around all day and like send a few posts and make a few comments. And that's like my job. But they don't, whenever anybody says that, I'm like, yeah, you should do that. You should definitely do that. Just dink around on Facebook all day and see how that works out for you.
Yeah.
But they don't
See how
realize like, this is actual business, meaning I have emails to send. I need to reach out to podcast guests. I do podcasting. There's posting this in the Iron Council, and I'm trying to delegate all of these things and make it work harmoniously and seamlessly. And that's a real challenge at times. If you're a business owner, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
totally. Wait, because no one will do it as good as you, Ryan.
That's not true.
And
That's what we tell
I know,
ourselves, but that is not
I know,
true.
but in the areas where you struggle delegating, it's probably rooted in that. Would you
It's
agree?
rooted in my belief in that.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair
Like,
enough.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah. It is
reality
true.
is like we're developing a leadership development course right now. You do that better than I do. Uh, Drew Kuchurik,
You
he
don't want to
does
admit it.
that. You do it better. No, I don't. I don't want to admit it, but I'm willing to say it today.
I'm just joking. I'm joking.
Drew Kuchurik, who does our network stuff and our membership stuff, and make sure the back end stuff with the Iron Council is all working. I don't even know what he's talking about half the time. An even better case is Reese, where he's like pouring over the analytics and the data, and he's like, Ryan, you got to tweak this, adjust this, move this. I'm like, why again? He's like, because the numbers support it. I'm like, okay, I don't understand that, but sounds good. And then you have
Yeah.
Chris Gatchko, who runs events, and you have Alan and Jay, who onboard new members. Like, we tell ourselves that nobody could do it as good as us, but that's just ego talking. There's actually people who can do it significantly better than you if you get the hell out of the way and let them shine and thrive in their zone of genius, is what I've heard it referred to as.
Yeah, that's spot on. Well, and what a great opportunity that you have, or a lot of us have, to delegate that authority and create opportunities for people. If we're also willing to get out of the way and give them a chance, you know what I mean, to take that on. Of course, within boundaries, so they're not destroying anything, right? And that they can fail quickly and learn quickly. But that's what leaders do, right? I think, create opportunities for others, and that's found in delegation, right? In that transfer of authority. So,
well, there has to be rules and parameters that your people operate under. Like, here's what I'm looking for. Yeah. Here's the parameters. Here's kind of the goal and the accomplishment, totally. What we want to achieve by doing this. Go. And yeah. I've had guys who need all the instruction in the world. I actually don't like working with guys like that. Like, I really don't. Like, I don't need to babysit you. I don't need to tell you. If I need to tell you every step of the process, I will just do it myself.
Yeah.
Because then at that point, I might as well. But if I can tell you what we've heard as the commander's intent, if you know my intent, you know what I'm after. A great example of that is we're rebuilding some sales funnels with our organization, specifically for the Iron Council. And I told Drew, hey, here's what I'm looking for. Here's a couple of examples of other funnels out there. Here's kind of what I'm hoping to achieve. And he's like, got it. 24 hours later, he puts together this beautiful funnel. He's like, hey, here's what you're looking for. A few little tweaks and adjustments I think I might make. But outside of that, man, that freed me up to do something else. It looks beautiful, something I never could have done myself. It also, here's one that's often overlooked, is it gives people an opportunity to serve. What I notice a lot of men do is they won't ask for help because they don't want to burden anybody else. I don't want to
Yeah.
burden him. I don't like, I can do it. No, I'll take care. I don't want to burden somebody else because we want to be an asset, not a liability. But the opposite is actually true. If I turn to you, Kip, and I say, "Hey, look, I know you're busy. Uh, you've got a lot going on. I'm looking for this thing, and I think you'd be great in this." Would you feel burdened, or would you feel complimented? At least a compliment.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
You might not be able to do it because of your schedule or whatever else, but at a minimum, you'd feel complimented. And if you actually did it and achieved it, and I came back and I'm like, "Hey, great job. I love how this looks. I love how this came together. I appreciate this." I mean, we talked about it, 2 weeks ago with the leadership development course that we're putting together right
Yeah.
now. And you came to me
Yeah.
and you're like, "Hey, man, like I really want to head this up and I really want to make sure that it has these factors." I'm like, "Great, do it, run with it." And you should feel proud about it. And
Yeah.
at the risk of sounding a little arrogant or weird here because of the context of talking with you about this, it's like, okay, well, I was the one who provided that opportunity for you to do that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
isn't that
Totally.
what we should be doing as leaders, is providing people opportunity to go out, to serve, to feel valuable, to have purpose and meaning and responsibility in their lives?
Totally. Well, and if you don't want me adding, this is a fun conversation because I've seen the pendulum swing in this regard, where those in a leadership position say, "Hey, I need some help." Someone volunteers, but they're not capable of doing it well.
Mm,
And they go, "Oh yeah, run with it." Then they run with it. They falls on their face, and then erodes. It's like quite ironic, erodes trust and capability, right, in that individual, because they didn't deliver. So we
yeah,
got to be careful, right? Commander's intent is great, all that's great, but Drew's got to be able to deliver.
he's got to be the guy.
Otherwise, you're going to set Drew up to fail, and that's on you as well, right? Because he volunteered because he wanted to help, and you gave him something that he was not going to win at, right? Now, this is
Great
all an
point.
example, right? And
That's
so
a
we got
good
to be
point.
really careful that it's not just this volunteer thing. Oh, whoever volunteers, give it to them. No, no, no. They got to be capable of winning at the same time. Otherwise, now it could be some stretching in there. That's okay. But man, if they're not capable of winning at the same time, you're going to set them up for failure. And what sucks about that is, in some organizations, you do that, and then everyone's like, "Oh man, that guy didn't deliver." And there's this negative, when all they did is do what? Their willingness to raise their hand and volunteer and probably do something that they didn't yet weren't capable of winning, and you set them up to lose
Yeah.
as a leader, right? So we got to be careful of that, right? So
It's a good point. A real world example of that within the Iron Council, since we're on the conversation here,
yeah,
is in the past, if I'm gone on a Friday, we do our calls on Friday morning. If I'm gone on a Friday, I need to have somebody like yourself come in and step in and lead that call. In the past, I've done exactly what you said. "Hey, who would like to run the call?" And so will raise their hand, and I'm like, "Great, good, you got it." And then I'll go and I'll come back and I'm like, "Ooh," I watch the replay. I'm like, "That did not go well." So I've
yeah,
changed from saying, "Hey, who would like to do that?" to identifying 5 to 6 people that I know at any time I could trust to be able to run it. And what I do when I'm gone is I go through that list. Kit, you get messages from me. You
yep, yep.
decline 99% of the time, but you do get messages from me. "Hey, Kip, can you run the call?" You're like, "No, I'm building a home." "Hey, Kip, can you run
No,
the call?" "No, I'm in France." "Hey, Kip, can you
are,
run the
are you
call?"
keeping track of
"No."
my responses? He's
I'm like, "Well,
like, that's
shit,
10
Kip's out.
times.
So yeah, I keep score. So Kip's out. So then I move to so and so and so and so and so and so. So that's actually gonna make some of
Wow.
the guys feel bad. They're like, "Oh man, I was
Well, I
second
thought
to
I was
Kip.
number one on the list.
I thought I was."
Last time I talked to Ryan, he said he called me first before Kip. Yeah.
Anyways, all right. Well, let's get to
uh,
some questions today.
yeah, yeah. So we're going to field questions from the Iron Council as well as Facebook. Our first question in the IC, Spencer Hancock. My birthday was earlier this month, and for the second time in 3 years, my wife allowed her family to book their family reunion on my birthday. I get that the timing of all 5 families can be tough, but then my birthday gets forgotten. I grew up in a family where your birthday is a big deal. How would you guys advise me telling my wife that I feel pretty forgotten? let me add that direct conversation is not a strong suit of mine, and one of the reasons why I joined the Iron Council.
I really like this. I saw some of these questions. I didn't see all of these. I like this. My knee-jerk reaction is, bro, it's your birthday, get over it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my knee-jerk reaction. But then if I think about it for just 10 seconds, it doesn't matter if it's important to me. It doesn't matter if it's not the same priority to her or her family or anybody else that it is to you. If you have something that's important to you, you need no validation, no approval, no, hey, I hope everybody else feels the same way. It's important to you. And you know what? I actually bet it would be important to her if she knew how important it was to you. And you're talking about your weakness as being direct communication. That's why she might not even know. You might be wallowing and feeling sorry for yourself and feeling like nobody loves you. And yet you failed to communicate what was important to you. Now, I started thinking about this question because I really liked this question. What if instead of looking at it as a negative, what if you could celebrate your birthday with her family and 5 families? Now, all of a sudden, it becomes a celebration. It's a party.
Yeah.
It's not like me and the kids and the wife get together. Now it's everybody's here and we're celebrating my birthday. And I'd be willing to bet if you said, hey, hon, can I just talk with you about something? And it's just hard because we as men often will slough this off like, it's not a big deal. I don't want to burden anybody like we talked about earlier. I'll just
or to your point, it's just my birthday, but you say that, but it doesn't feel that way.
It's not.
So it doesn't matter what you say, right?
So, you don't need to make demands necessarily, but you might go to her and say, hey, hon, like, I got to share something with you that I don't think I've ever really expressed. I grew up where birthdays were a big deal, and I really like having a birthday. I really like people coming together that I love, and I like receiving gifts or, whatever it is. Like, I really like that. It feels good. But one thing I've noticed is the last 2 years, you've booked a family holiday, and that's okay. Like, I actually love your family. I want to be there and we have a good time. But like, I kind of feel a little bit left out or forgotten when my birthday doesn't get celebrated. Maybe next year, if it's okay with you, if you're comfortable with this, we could still do the family thing, but can we have a birthday party? I would love to do that. And that would be meaningful and significant to me. Man, she would do that. Of course she would do that. She wants to do that. She wants to serve you. She just doesn't know. That's it. She does not know. She doesn't think less of you. She's not trying to ignore you. She's not trying to make you feel bad. She just doesn't know. But if she knew, if she's a good spouse, just like you and us as men should strive to be better spouses, she would love to do that for you. But she's just got to know. You're actually setting her up for failure by not telling her. Because what's happening is you're not telling her. This is what we call a covert contract. You're not telling her, and then you're having attitudes and beliefs and feelings, not positive ones, by the way, towards her for something you didn't communicate. So is that her fault or is that your fault? Communicate it with her gently, let her know what you'd like, and see what she does. I bet she steps up.
So I want to see if you'd answer or you'd add anything to your answer with this context. At one point in Spencer's question, he really comes down to this one sentence. And I think this is the real question. And I think this is a question that all men, not all men, a lot of men can relate to. How would you guys advise telling my wife that I feel pretty forgotten?
That just those words.
Period.
That's it.
I just feel forgotten.
That's right? It. But that makes us appear weak. That's why you're not doing it. I assume.
Yeah.
That's why I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's not weak to have a feeling about something. It's not weak to have a desire. It's not weak to want to be acknowledged and recognized. Here's another thing that you can do. When she actually acknowledges you, let's say you do a project around the house, or you put together a party for one of your children or something. You do something and she acknowledges you for it. Reward her for it by letting her know how you feel about it.
I really appreciated you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even better than that, even better than I appreciate you. Here's what I would say. Hey, hon, I did that project for you and I just got to tell you, like, I don't need it. But when I do a project around the house and it's something that you want done, something that will beautify the home or make it more effective, and you tell me how you feel about it, man, it makes me feel acknowledged. Makes me feel recognized. It makes me feel important. And that might seem silly, but I really like to feel valuable in the home. And so when you acknowledge me that way, I like that. I got to tell you, I like that. So you're
Yeah.
reinforcing the behavior that you want her to engage in. And if you do that, she's going to feel good. She's like, oh, I served my husband. Oh, he likes what I did. Like she wants that. And then she's going to do more of it because she wants that just like you do. She wants acknowledgement just like you do.
I like that. I like it. I think one thing that I would bring up that I think some of us, or at least I have in the past, where I might want to communicate an upset like this, will have a tendency to latch on and go, you made me mad when, or I feel forgotten when you put your family before me. So get really present to what you're owning. And I like to say it this way, separate reality from your story, right? And so in Spencer's case, his story is what? That he's forgotten. You hear it. Oh, my wife forgets me. I'm not special. She chooses the family reunion over my birthday, blah, blah, blah. No, the reality is what? That is your family reunion on his birthday. That's it. That's the
Nothing
fact,
else to it.
right? That's it. So own your interpretation. Hey, money. Hey, honey, when we do the family reunion on birthday, I know this is probably not your intention, but I interpret it as where it feels like that I'm, less valued or whatever. And I know that's my interpretation, but you know what I mean? Then you put your request in, right? Can we celebrate my birthday? Can we do something? So own how you're feeling and communicate how you feel. Don't jump to the conclusion, you know what I mean, around the story.
I like you said something there. I really like the whole thing I liked, but there was one moment you said, and then you put your request in. Because what a lot of guys will do is they're like, hey, when this happens, I
Demand.
feel forgotten. No, not even that. They won't even say it. They won't
Oh,
make any
oh,
request.
they'll just like no request. Oh, got it.
They'll say, hey, hon, it feels like I'm forgotten. I know this is happening and I feel upset. And then what does she say? She says,
Okay,
oh, I'm
sorry about
sorry.
that, honey.
Right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean, no, 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 no. I wasn't forgetting about you. I'm sorry. And you're like, it's okay. I just wanted to let you know. No, like tell her, be
Yeah,
assertive.
because
It's in sales.
you just
The number one reason you don't make a sale in sales, why, Kip?
because you don't ask. You don't ask for it.
That's it.
Yeah.
You put together this beautiful sales presentation, and the client's like, yeah, 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 this is cool. And you're like, all right, well, see you later. Like on Dumb and Dumber. Big gulps, huh? Well, see you later. What are you doing?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, you like the presentation? Good. Here's what I propose. Would you like to move forward with this proposal? It's the same thing in a marriage. Hey, hon, I feel forgotten. I know that's not your intent, but this is how it makes me feel. And she's like, I didn't mean it like that at all. Say, that's okay. I'm hoping maybe next year we can do ... Propose
Yeah.
a solution.
Yeah. And you have a solution, by the way. Like some guys might like, oh, I just wanted to let her know. No, you have an expectation of communicating that and that something's going to change. So you better communicate whatever that expectation is and put it in a form of an ask. So then that way you don't have, back to what you said earlier, a covert contract.
I think the most
That's good
important
stuff.
thing that we need to recognize here in assertive communication is people want to serve you. People want to be valuable. They want to please you. They want to feel important. They want to have responsibility. So give it to them by telling them, and it makes it less scary. All right, next question.
Hey, Bobby Katie. Life throws a lot at you at different times in your life. What's one thing you do now to keep you grounded and focused on the mission at hand? Mine, when my wife was battling cancer, I stayed focused on being that for her, obviously, but I also being that positive reinforcement that everything's going to be okay. I really think that the time in the IC and 75 hard gave me the groundworks to help her and myself get through that hard time.
I had
So
a
when
really good
life throws you
podcast.
difficult things. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good podcast over the weekend with his name is Greg Harden. He's a mindset coach to some of the greatest athletes ever. Tom Brady, Desmond Howard, Michael Phelps. He's a mindset coach to these guys. It's coming out
Yeah.
Tuesday. So if you're listening to this, it came out yesterday. Go back and listen to it. And he talks about the 4 A's that all humans desire. And that is attention. I'm pulling up my notes from the interview because I saved my notes. Attention, affection, approval, and acceptance. And the way that he frames it early in the book is that's what we're seeking from others. And the way that he frames it later in the book is he says, put a self in front of that. Self-attention, self-affection, self-approval, self-acceptance. We need to spend more time in those arenas taking care of ourselves. And I asked him, I said, is this selfish? And he says, yeah. But why is that bad? He said something to the effect, and I'm looking through my notes here. He said something to the effect of, oh, here it is. We need to eliminate the dramatics of selfishness. He says everybody dramatizes it. We make it out to be this big, negative, big bad wolf. It's not. It's drama. It's not bad to be selfish. In fact, if you're selfish, then you're more capable of serving others. So if you can find a way, and this is 30,000 foot use type stuff, but if you can find a way to give yourself some self-attention in a way that's meaningful to you, then that's what you need to do when things are hard. Self-attention might be training, might be working out, might be picking up a new hobby, might be working on a project, might be working on a speech, might be reading some books, might be binge watching Suits on Netflix. I don't know what it is, but it's self-attention. It's something for you. Self-affection, for me, we always focus on the negative. I'm not good at this. I failed here. I did this bad. I did this poorly. Instead, it's like, okay, well, what have I done well? Well, Ryan, you're a pretty decent father most of the time. Look at this home that you're trying to create for your kids. Look at this movement that you've created. Like, you're worthy of affection. Like, that's valuable stuff.
Really?
Right. And so you go through this whole list of things, and then you figure out ways to give yourself more self-attention, more self-affection, more self-approval, and more self-acceptance. The beauty of this is now we're no longer reliant on external factors. For example, your wife battling cancer, not to diminish the struggle of that, but it's an external factor that you don't have any control over. You have control over your response to it medically and emotionally and mentally. But if you build this within yourself, these 4 A's within yourself, you're going to be more capable of managing those external factors that are beyond your control. Mine's a divorce in the past 8 months now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have any control over that. So I've got to figure out ways to give myself self-attention. And the hard one for me is self-affection. Like, I can give that to other people. Kip, I really care about you. I love you like a brother. I care about you. I want you to succeed. I see so much good in you. When things maybe aren't going as well, I want to support you. I don't do that for myself, though.
Yeah.
I do it for other people.
So these 4 A's people seek after just by human nature. Mm-hmm. And the premise of his book is don't go externally for those. You need to address those with yourself, like have that address attention and affection and those. And that's really awesome. I'm excited about this podcast that comes out tomorrow or yesterday. Yeah, because it's unfair too, right? Like that's the main thing I think about a little bit is when I'm so externally, I need the attention and validation, let's say from my wife, that's exhausting to think about. It's like, it's so unfair, right? Like let's say I put that on you, Ryan. It's like, hey, you know what? My day will go fine, Ryan, but man, dude, you got to show up really powerfully today. And you got to feed my ego and you got to make sure I feel affectionate and blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, you know what? I'm going to have a bad day. I'm going to put that all on you instead.
Let's be clear though, Kip, I am not your wife. Like, I just want to be very clear on that. So, because you said wife, and you're like, with you, Ryan, for example. Whoa, hold on a second here.
But you know what I mean? That would be that's unfair to her. That's unfair to relationships. I mean, I've dated girls before Asia and I got married, and one girl, I thought she was amazing, but it was exhausting. I had to show up perfectly every day. If I had a bad day, everything was going to go south because she was so dependent on how I showed up for how she would feel today. And it's unfair to put that on people too.
I agree. I agree. I guess the question I would ask, and I'm not going to really give any answers here, but we probably will throughout the rest of the podcast. But the question I would ask is, how, Bobby, and other people that are listening, how do you give attention to yourself, and how would you
Yeah.
like to? How do you, what practices do you have in place that will help you have some self-affection? How do you approve of yourself? When it comes to approving of yourself, I think we've talked about this a lot. I think it's being a man of your word and integrity. Because if you wake
Yeah.
up this morning and you set your alarm for 6 o'clock and you woke up at 6, then that's an approval. That's a little
Confidence.
tick
Yeah.
mark in the hey, I did good today. And then self-acceptance, which is realizing that you have faults and demons and negativity and past mistakes. But you know what? Without those, you wouldn't be who you are. I tend to personally, because I am driven and I am motivated and I can maintain focus pretty well, is I end up leaving a wake of collateral damage in my path with things that detract me from what my singular pursuit is in the moment. And I'm not saying they're always the right
Yeah.
things, but that's what happens. That's a double-edged sword, or maybe a catch 22, meaning I'm
Yeah.
hyper focused. I can achieve what I want, but damn if I didn't ruin my family in the
It's the
process.
impact. Yeah.
So what do I get rid of? Do I get rid of the ability that I have to leave a wake of collateral damage in my path, or do I get rid of my drive and my focus? I don't know which one you
Yeah.
choose.
Or do you learn to switch your drive and focus so then that way you kill it in all areas, right? But
Exactly.
you gotta turn off that focus and redirect it when appropriate, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, one thing to answer Bobby's question that has helped me in this past year, and I'm not I just thought it was insightful. There's a book called The Extraordinary Leader. Zinger Folkman's one of the authors. And the whole premise of that book is that we all have like super talents and kind of gifts. And as from a leadership development perspective, there's value in doubling down on what we're good at and becoming extraordinary. Almost the opposite of what we'd assume, right? Because the human nature, and I know this about you, Ryan, is if you had a bunch of people take an assessment, you'd skip all the great things that people said and you'd jump down to the lowest score and you'd be like, nah, you know what I mean? And what I like about that premise of that book is like, no, move back up to the top, right? Like kind of get connected to where your talents are and how do you strengthen them? And so that idea really makes me feel better too, right? When I think about it, it's like, hey, you know what? There are things I'm good at. And when I'm willing to ask and or through an assessment process or whatever, and I hear these things, I go, okay, yeah, I actually have some talents that I'm bringing to the table, and how do I strengthen those? And almost kind of like, what is my brand as a man, and how do I embrace it and use those to serve people more than I have been, and that for whatever reason kind of gets me grounded where I'm not just focusing on the negative. But
yeah,
good question, Bobby. I actually like that. All right, Taylor Kirk. I recently accepted a job with a great company in Dallas. I'm about 5 weeks in and everything is progressing well with a great team and manager. I recently had an opportunity to test with the FAA for Air Traffic Control School, which is something I've always wanted to do. The question is, what would be your advice in regards to determine if I should take the FFA opportunity, assuming he gets the offer, or staying with the current employer since I just started? For context, I had already accepted my current role before receiving the invitation to test for the FAA.
Okay. I'm going to reframe. I saw this question. I'm going to reframe this question.
Yeah.
I'm going to strip everything else out of it that's unnecessary.
Yeah.
The question is this: should I remain loyal to a company that will not be loyal to me in exchange for pursuing a dream that I have?
Well,
do we need to say any more to that question?
No.
There's nothing more to it.
The other thing that triggered like the red flag I said is take this opportunity, assuming I get you're trying to make a choice when you don't even know yet. So like get to the point of taking the test. So that way you have like he's trying to determine if you should stay or go when go is only based upon a test that he hasn't even taken yet. Right. So like, be mindful of that. Take the test.
Sure.
So that way
Yeah,
you even have
sure.
options first. Right. But
Yeah.
But I like
I agree.
your point way better. Yeah.
The only caveat to that is other responsibilities. I know those, for example, if you're married and you have kids, like there's considerations, right? Even in that situation, I would still tell you, hey, you and your wife can eat rice and beans for a couple of years, and your kids are going to be okay. And maybe Christmas isn't as lucrative as it once was a year or two ago. And so what? You're chasing your dream. You want to get to the end of your life, 65, 70, 75, 80 years old, and be like, damn, I should have done that thing. And that's exactly what you would be thinking. Yeah, I would have been out a little money. I would have had to travel a little bit, and I would have been away from my family, a little bit, a few more days or a few. It's exactly what you'll be thinking. So that's a no-brainer to me. Go take your test.
Totally.
Go pursue what you want. If this company is that you're working with, as long as you do a good job and you break it off amicably, there's probably an opportunity to come back at some point. Like any reasonable person is going to say, "Hey, you know what? Damn, that sucks, but I understand. I get it."
Yeah. I mean, if an employer or an employee came to you and said, oh my gosh, I just started, Ryan, I'm loving the job, but my dream opportunity just presented itself and I got to take this. You would totally be like, yeah, like, got it. Makes sense.
I
like,
might be upset as an employer. Like I might have invested in you. So what? Just so
Sure.
what? Like live your
Totally.
life. You have risk going to work with an organization, and they have risk, and they're willing to assume the risk that you might leave, and you're willing to
Yep.
assume the risk that maybe you won't like it. Like there's risk we take in everything. And in this case, the company that you are working with may have lost out on a great employee. That's all factored into that's all baked into the cake, as they say.
Yeah, totally. Aaron Kanatsar, what are some tactics that you guys have employed to be more introspective in regards to personal battles, areas of needed growth, battling previous trauma, and etc., when self-reflection is difficult or even painful to do? Thanks for everything that you guys do.
I personally like journaling. And I think one of the reasons I like journaling so much is because when you're talking about self-reflection, for me, it gets stuck in my brain, and then it just becomes an echo chamber where it's bouncing off, and I can never release it. It's like, you're horrible, you're not good at
Process
this,
it.
you
Yeah.
failed, you did this. And so it's like bouncing around in my brain. It's like, you're horrible, you're bad, you're this and that, and it just feeds off, and it just spirals into this never-ending circle of despair. But for me, I think this can happen in one of a couple of ways. I don't think it's enough just to go blow off steam somewhere.
Yeah.
Like some people
You
say,
need
well,
to
just go work out.
process.
I mean, yeah, you'll feel better because you're tired. That's why. You're just tired. You're exhausted. You focus all your energy on something else and you're tired, and it alleviates the pressure for a little while. So, I mean, there's value in that. It's a distraction
Yeah.
method, but you're not actually solving the problem unless you use your working out as time to reflect on and you're extracting lessons from those experiences. Jiu-jitsu is a great example of that. If you go to class and you just roll and then you come back and you're like, yeah, it was good class, but you don't extract any of the lessons. Oh, that guy caught me in an armbar, but how did he catch me in an armbar? Oh, I did this and then he did that and I did this and then he responded and that's what happened. Okay, now you're a better
Yeah.
player because you were reflecting on it. So for me, journaling really helps because the minute I put pen to paper, and I'm not talking about on a computer, I've got my journal right here. The minute I put pen to paper, it gets out of here and I can see it a little differently, more objectively, more clearly. So that's good. Another way that you can do that is by talking with other men. And that's hard because you need to go to another man and say, hey, you know what? I'm struggling with something. Can I talk to you about this? He's going to say yes, by the way, which might be good or bad, depending on if you really wanted to have the conversation or not. And then you need to open up and you need to share what's going on. And that person will listen potentially, or they'll offer some feedback, or they'll give you a different perspective. And that's really, really healthy because now it's getting out of your brain and into the real world, and you can start seeing things from a perspective that you couldn't see before. So that's what I like. Those two tactics, talking with other men. In fact, I did that this weekend. I called a buddy up. I'm like, hey, here's what I'm going through. Like, you have a minute to talk? And we haven't been able to over the weekend because he was gone, but we're going to do that this week. And, that just took me making a quick call and a text and saying, hey, this is what I need. And he's like, cool. What are we doing? When can we do it?
Yeah.
Journaling, buy a journal at Walmart or Target or wherever your place is, and Just start writing about what you're thinking, experiencing, feeling, and just get it all out.
Totally. I have two writing prompts that I've used in the past. The one is because he might like, oh, I'm going to journal tomorrow morning, and then like nothing comes to mind. I would, if you want to be really intentional here, I'd say, in what areas of your life is something incomplete or unresolved? And I would actually journal about it, how you feel about it, situation, which, you know what I mean, and try to follow your thought process to a conclusion of some sort. The other thing I've done, and this has been years, but it was actually like a really powerful exercise, is I wrote my sob story, my drama, right? Like, and we all have them, like literally, and I latch onto it all the time. Like I'll throw in how I was raised, and and it's this buildup of, whoa, poor Kip, and look what I've achieved. And it has it's almost like this dramatic feel to it. And I'll tap into it every so often when Asia introduced me to someone new. I'll be like, oh, I'll pull some of that up from my past and make me look good. And we all have it. We have this story around our identity, and we use it to our benefit. We'll even use these personal battles and trauma to our benefit, so we can feel sorry for ourselves. And I went through this exercise once where I wrote it down. It was like 2 pages long, and I'd read it like 20 times. And after like the 20th time, I was like, that is so made up. And that is so dramatic. And it's silly to even hear you read it out loud. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is in my head, right? And this is what I tell myself all the time. So just play with the difference between the stories that we create and reality. But right now, I'm now thinking in my head, it's like, I want to be careful here, because Ryan, something you said earlier that I feel really passionate about is like, hey, if it's dramatic, it's dramatic. So I don't want to downplay our troubles and our struggles. That's not what my intent here is, but get present to the story that we're creating versus reality. And one way to do that is through those two exercises.
One thing you said, if it's dramatic, it's dramatic. That's not true.
That's true.
That's not true at all. 2 + 2 = 4 is true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
it is just
H2O, water is H2O, which is, two parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. Like that's true.
Yeah.
But dramatic is not true. It's how you feel about a thing. And I'm not trying to invalidate how somebody feels about a thing. I'm just wondering if we can give ourselves a different perspective by making life more challenging in certain aspects, or pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zone. I mean, how many times have you been now in an altercation, specifically on the mats, where, 8 years ago, you would have freaked out and tapped.
Yeah.
And now you're like, oh, that doesn't feel good, but it's like, I'm okay.
Yeah. What's the difference?
It's all perspective. It's all just time. It's all just like, hey, I'm familiar with this discomfort. That's okay. I do like what you're saying about even thinking about putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. You're talking about looking at it objectively. I would call that consciousness, where you're actually consciously looking at your story, not through your own lens, but the lens of an objective passerby. And you start reading it, you're like, no, that's not true. But through your lens, it felt really, really accurate. And so one thing I like to do is I like to, in that situation, I might ask, if somebody else was telling me this story, how would I feel about it? I would say, oh my gosh, this guy is dramatic. This guy is like so negative. This guy is like, what's with this guy? Like, that's how I would feel. And you're telling that about yourself.
Totally.
Another little exercise is the way that you talk about yourself. Like, I'm a horrible human being. I'm no good. I'm a loser. Go tell that to somebody else today. Like, would you do that to somebody else? Not even that. Just see how you feel about doing it. Kip, if I came to you and I said, Kip, you're a freaking loser, man. You're pathetic. You're no good. I don't care about your achievements because all of the negative shit that you've done in your life overshadows
Way worse.
any
Yeah.
achievements. You're a bum. You're a loser and you're never going to amount to anything. I would never in a million years say that to you. And yet I'm willing to say it about myself.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about, putting it in different contexts and consciousness and looking at it more objectively than the subjective lens in which you're viewing it.
Yeah. Eric Peterson, how do you recommend men who have made it, solid job, good relationships, etc., continue to strive and find and create difficulty in their lives so they don't become complacent?
You got to get rid of the phrase "I made it." You made what?
Yeah.
What did you make? You made good money relative to what? Your loser neighbor that, it's like strung out and doesn't have any education or drive. Well, congratulations. You're better than him.
Yeah.
Cool. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to throw the neighbor under the bus here, but I'm saying like you've made it compared to what? Oh, good. You're in a 10-year marriage, but your parents only lasted 5 years. Well, congratulations. There's people that have done it for 20, 30, 40, 60, 70 years. So you've made it. Like, who are you comparing yourself to? Or even, I think even better is you're going to limit your potential. So, okay, so you made 200 grand this year. So you're okay with that? You might be, and that's okay. I'm not here to judge and tell you what you should or should make. But if you're not okay with that, then there's guys that are making $200,000 this week. So have you really made it? You might have. And, I'm not here to tell you that what you're doing is inadequate. I don't know. I don't know what your priorities are. I don't know what your goals are. I don't know what your dreams are. I don't know what your hopes are. I don't know any of that. But it sounds to me like there's a conflict between, hey, I'm doing pretty well and I want to do better. Good. Then get rid of the I'm doing pretty well thing. Like I've made it, I've arrived, and start thinking about what's next. What do I want to do next? Here's my marriage, here's my relationship, but here's what I'd like it to look like. Here's how I'm connected to my kids, but here's how I'd like to be connected to my kids. Here's the amount of money that I'm making right now. And I feel pretty good about that. I've done pretty well for myself, but here's what I'd like to be making. And here's how I'm going to do it. My body, I'm pretty lean, I'm strong, I'm fit. But that's not all I have. There's more to it than that. Let me see what else I can do. So I think we need to get rid of the I've made it mentality and start looking at something else. Uh-oh, I think I lost Kip. All right, guys, we were having some technical difficulties, so Kip is unable to make it back on the call before our time wrapped up for today. So with that said, I think we'll just wrap it up today. You guys had some great questions. We appreciate those questions, and hopefully we gave you some information and some ideas to consider in your own life. Keep the questions rolling. Also remember that we're going to be opening up the Iron Council on September 15th. September 15th. If you go to orderaman.com/Iron Council, you'll be able to drop your email in there and be notified when we open back up. Also want to give a shout out to my good friends and show sponsors, Montana Knife Company. Just started working with these guys in a more formal setting. I've been friends with them for years. Hunts are coming up this year, and I would highly, highly encourage you to go check out Montana Knife Company to see what knives they have. I've been using their knives for breaking down animals and butchering animals and even their culinary set in the kitchen for years now. And I can't speak highly enough about this American-made knife company. Go check it out, montanaknifecompany.com. All right, guys, I appreciate you. Go check out the Iron Council. Stay tuned, stay connected with us. Let's all go out there, take action, and become the men we are meant to be.